collection games, or game compilations, or whatever you want to call them. Who doesn't love them? Take a whole bunch of games from a certain franchise or company, or on a console, or whatever we were celebrating, and put them all in one release for the price of just one game, sometimes even less. And that's what I have come to count down for you all today. Now, I want to set some ground rules. One collection per franchise or console or company or whatever. Company as in how companies like Midway, Namco, or SNK have multiple collections of their arcade games, but I can't do, say, 2 SNK classic collections, for example. But I can do an SNK arcade collection and a Samurai Showdown collection. Or spoiler alert, neither, because neither are actually on the list. In addition, I am not doing any remake or remaster collection, because I feel those fall more under the category of remakes or remasters. So if y'all are expecting games like the Crash Insane Trilogy, or Halo Master Chief Collection, or Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection, those won't be on this list. And also, it's my opinion. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started. But before we do that, you know what to do. If you like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the bell, or I will hunt you down.
I wanted to give to you, in the last part of your notes here, the significance spiritually of the number 10 in the Bible.
One criticism a lot of companies get nowadays is that they don't really respect or preserve their older games. I'm looking at you, Nintendo. But one company that is really good at respecting their older games is Capcom. And just a couple of years ago, they proved that with Capcom Fighting Collection. Now, you probably hear Capcom and fighting game, so you probably think it's mostly Street Fighter, but surprisingly enough, no. I mean, obviously, there is Street Fighter, like Hyper Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, and Super Gem Fighter Mega Mix, but it is so cool to see that Darkstalkers is the one that gets the most love, with 5 out of the 10 games in this collection. In addition to those, the 2 other games are Red Earth and Cyberbots Full Metal Madness, the latter of which was basically stuck on old hardware, and the only reason I knew about it is because the main character was in Marvel vs. Capcom, and then Red Earth made its console debut in this collection. Not to mention, the museum stuff, you know, like the extra bonus stuff, is always nice. That's also a major factor in where these games rank. It's a small thing that these collections do, but it just shows that actual love and care was put into this, and it sure was with Capcom Fighting Collection. Remember when Nintendo released Super Mario 3D All-Stars for Mario's 35th anniversary, and then it came out as a half-assed cash grab for Mario fans, and they stopped selling it after like 6 months? Well, something similar happened with Kirby's 20th anniversary, but instead of it being a half-assed cash grab that Nintendo stopped selling because they felt like it, Kirby Dream Collection was one made with love. Kirby Dream Collection has 6 games included: Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, Kirby's Dream Land 2, Kirby Superstar, Kirby's Dream Land 3, and Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. While not an incredibly stacked lineup, what makes Kirby's Dream Collection so awesome is all the extra stuff put in there to celebrate Kirby. It has 13 new challenge stages based on the ones in Kirby Return to Dreamland. The museum section has some nice artwork and video spotlights, and even has a few episodes of Kirby Right Back At Ya included. How cool is that? You think that's where it ends? How about the game also giving you an additional booklet that gives some Kirby trivia and a soundtrack CD with 42 songs? Needless to say, Kirby Dream Collection is a hell of a way to celebrate a franchise's anniversary.
So I'm going to be giving this flavor 8.5 out of 10 scoops.
One game franchise I think is prime for a collection game like this is Castlevania, because of just how many games there are to go back to. I think the best Castlevania collection has gotta be the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. If we're talking about retro classic Castlevania, this is a great value, and a great showcase as they covered up pretty much all bases. Castlevania 1, 2, 3, 4 are all included, as well as Bloodlines, and there's also the 2 Game Boy games that are probably only here because why not? And even a deep cut with Kid Dracula. I personally prefer the Game Boy version of Kid Dracula, but it's cool to see the NES version nonetheless. And of course, the museum section is present in the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, and it's just so cool to look through all the artwork and music and cool stuff like that. We might not like Konami anymore, but one thing they keep nailing is their collections, even though this one and most of them are outsourced, but still.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
7.
Valve. Yeah, we all know they don't know how to count to 3, but despite what some may believe, I actually think that they do know how to count to 3, because they put out a collection of 3 games: Portal, Half-Life 2, and Team Fortress 2. I'm of course talking about the Orange Box. I just listed 3 of the greatest and most beloved games of all time, and the Orange Box is an insane value, as you get all those for the price of just 1. It includes Half-Life 2 with its extra DLC, it includes Portal, which I don't think is as good as Portal 2, but this was before Portal 2 came out, so it's awesome. And what I find to be the most interesting is the inclusion of Team Fortress 2 launching alongside the Orange Box, and is the only way to play the game on console. Now you're probably wondering why the Orange Box isn't higher if it's such a good value. Well, that's because the game kind of lacks in the museum aspect, which I always love. You know, it is sort of just 3 games in this collection. And also, even though it is cool to have a console version of TF2 here, it is normally a free-to-play game, so while it is a really good value, 1/3 of it is normally free, but still, 3 games of this quality compiled into one is really awesome.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Woo! Mega Man. Of course the Blue Bomber was going to make this list, and when it comes to collections for Mega Man, you look no further than the Mega Man Legacy Collection. But which one? Legacy Collection 1? Legacy Collection 2? X Legacy Collection? X Legacy Collection 2? How about the Zero ZX Legacy Collection? Or the Battle Network Legacy Collection? Or that was split up into 2, I forgot. Yeah, this is a little complicated. But I'm going to cheat a little bit here, as I don't think you can ever go wrong with Mega Man 1 through 10. So I'm actually going to pick both Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2. Capcom splitting the collections made this one very difficult, but I really feel like you get the most bang for your buck with the combo pack of Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2. You got 9 games that, I don't care what anyone says, are all great, and then there's the first one as well. Not to mention, a wide array of bonuses really helps these collections out, and even though it is technically 2 games, getting the combo pack will cost you about as much as just 1 game. My compromise is that I'm allowed to put Legacy Collection 1 and 2 both on the list as 1 entry, but not in the top 5. Shake? No? You're not gonna shake? Well, it's my list anyway, so I was just gonna do it anyways. Either way, though, this is the perfect way to experience Mega Man 1 through 10.
Chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
I don't know about you, but I can always count on a new Sega Genesis collection coming out. And there are a lot of really good ones to choose from. And a lot of you might be expecting me to go with Sega Genesis Classics from 2018, but I'm actually going to go with Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. This one mainly comes down to personal bias, as Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection is what introduced me to many of the classic Sega Genesis games. Streets of Rage 2 in particular is one of my favorite games ever, and I first discovered it with this collection. There are a wide selection of Genesis games here, most if not all first party, and you can even unlock some cool bonuses, including developer interviews and even some unlockable games from the Sega Master System and arcade. Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection holds a special place in my heart, which is why it's in the top 5, but doesn't quite place higher because there are some issues. For example, it's missing games like Gunstar Heroes and Toe Jam and Earl, 2 games that defined the Sega Genesis, but overall, masterpiece. Earlier I talked about the Capcom Fighting Collection and mentioned how there was shockingly little Street Fighter on there. Well, that may be because just a few years before, Capcom went all out with Street Fighter in its own collection game with the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. This may possibly be some of the best ways to play these games. A whopping 12 of them, in fact. It's got every version of Street Fighter 2 up to Super Turbo, as well as the Alpha Trilogy, the Street Fighter 3 Trilogy, and the very first shitty Street Fighter game. The latter of which, even though, you know, it sucks ass, this might be the first time in a very long time it got re-released, like, in general. And as for the 3 Trilogy, you know, the Street Fighter 3 Trilogy, those games were stuck on old hardware for years. And especially since most fighting game players will tell you that Third Strike is the best fighting game of all time, it is great to have it available here. Throw that in with the online play added into each game, as well as the clear love and attention with the museum aspect, or even just the menus, and you got a great celebration of Street Fighter's 30th anniversary. There have been so many Atari collections released over the years, and I always have a similar reaction in that, well, it's cool and all, but it's Atari. But when Atari were gearing up to celebrate their 50th anniversary, they did way more than I think anyone could have possibly expected. You see, Atari 50th anniversary celebration doesn't just stop at Atari 2600 games, but it also features games from the 5200, 7800, Lynx, Jaguar, Atari's arcade games, Atari 8-bit, and even new games and unreleased prototypes, totaling to 103 games in this collection. But even with the wide selection of games over the lifespan of Atari, there's still more. You can organize the games through a timeline that combines design documents, manuals, and even video interviews. Atari 50th Anniversary Celebration is not just a collection of Atari games, but a whole history lesson on video games. Sure, the games might be primitive and all, which is kind of why they're not higher, but the entire package is a sight to behold.
Pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
Take franchises like Mega Man, Street Fighter, Castlevania, etc. Getting a collection from each of those franchises shouldn't be too crazy because Capcom or Konami or whoever have the rights to all of them figured out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, however, not quite so, but even still, Konami managed to put out the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, and it is immaculate. The Cowabunga Collection is like the perfect TMNT collection. If you are looking for the classics, this game has every game you could have possibly asked for. It hits all the games from the arcade, NES, SNES, Genesis, and even Game Boy. Even if not all the games are that good, such as the first one for NES, I still don't quite know what other games they could have added. Not a single TMNT game is missing. They even got the TMNT Tournament Fighter games. All 3 versions, not to mention, with the arcade games, instead of inserting more quarters to keep playing like how you do in an arcade, you can just keep pressing the start button, which is pretty funny, but also really cool. But it's not just the games, but the clear love and attention given to everything around the games. The menus are very cool looking with as much as a sick title screen and banger menu music. It also does not fall short in the museum aspect. And if that's not enough, TMNT Cowabunga Collection adds online co-op to each of the games. That actually might be the only reason it's not higher, like not number 1, because although it's cool, at least at launch, the online play was kind of wonky. But other than that, as a fan of TMNT, what more could you have asked for?
I'm a Luigi, number 1.
Let's take a company who made some amazing games on many consoles, but most notably the SNES and N64, but don't really make that many games anymore. But let's take pretty much their entire history of games up to that point and compile them into one big collection and throw in a bunch of flashy and charming spice throughout the menus and go ham on the museum stuff. I'm talking about Rare Replay. I mentioned how the TMNT Cowabunga collection has everything you could have possibly wanted from that. Well, any Rareware game you could possibly ask for is playable in Rare Replay, unless you ask for Sea of Thieves, but that wasn't out at the time, and also wouldn't be in this game, so shut up. But seriously, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Perfect Dark, Killer Instinct Gold, Battletoads, Jet Force Gemini, and Blast Corps, all in one package, is already big enough. But it doesn't stop there. It's got games like Jetpack, Digger T-Rock, RC Pro AM, and more that aren't as well known and might not even be as good. And we even got some games after the acquisition of Microsoft. Games like Viva Pinata, Grabbed by the Ghoulies, Cameo Elements of Power, Perfect Dark Zero, and even the Xbox Live Arcade remake of Jetpack. And GoldenEye 007, for a while the missing piece of this puzzle, got added in an update years later. 30 games in addition to love and personality all throughout the game, with some really cool bonus content, makes Rare Replay the #1 best game compilation or collection game or whatever you call it of all time. This was a pretty hard list, because there's a lot of these collection games. I could possibly do a part 2, do 10 more of these. What do you guys think? I'm sure you guys are going to comment that I'm missing Namco Museum, but I never really played any of those, But what are your favorite collection games? I feel like yours are going to look very different from my list, so leave a comment down below. Anyways, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, or I will hunt you down. Bye!